So between the time he was picked up and when he was released I'm sorry, I get really emotional when I start talking about this. They picked him up the morning they were supposed to release him. It was in the middle of the night, actually, when they picked him up. And they shackled them. And he's never had anything on his record.
In 2010, my dad got pulled over by a sheriff's deputy and taken into custody.
I was born in Mexico City, and I grew up there until I was about 10. And when I was 10, my parents made the decision to migrate to the United States after pretty much the high crime rates really got to them.
He was on his way to work. It was about 5 o'clock in the morning. He was pulled over for a traffic violation. They said that he had not stopped properly at a stop sign. Because he didn't have identification, they took him into McLean County Jail. And they held him, and he wasn't able to contact anybody, so I didn't even know at that time.
There was no explanation why he was being stopped. When my dad asked, the sheriff didn't say anything, so they took him.
There were people that we knew that were being kidnapped. You know, my father was held at gunpoint several times, and so they started feeling like, you know what, this is not a safe place for us to raise kids.
You don't know if he's going to come home, if they're going to ship him off. You never know what the next day is going to bring.
And we met up with another organization that I'd never heard of, which was Latinos United for Change and Illinois People's Action. And that's the first day that I met Sunny, and I met Don and all the people. And I was like, wow, there's an activist community that is here in my own town. And from that day, I went to Washington with them the next week and spoke at this plenary in front of 2,000 people. And after that, there was kind of no turning back.
It's my first year at MPA, but I already feel like I've gained a family and that will support us in our fight for just and humane immigration reform.
She was a student, and she was angry about what's going on in America around immigration, and she started organizing on her campus, and that's how we met her, and she became one of our best key leaders at Illinois People's Action, and she went from a leader to where now she is now a staff.
This wasn't just about immigration status. This wasn't about some civil crime that it is to migrate. It was a war on people of color. It was a racial issue. It was about find brown people and stop them arbitrarily, and now you have a reason.
There's two kinds of power. There's if you have a lot of money, financial power, or what we have, and that's people power, and that's what we're trying to build. We're trying to build the most powerful grassroots organization that's in downstate Illinois, outside of Chicago. I mean, we're probably one of the only groups doing this type of work.
"28 were arrested this morning. We were there as family members showed up to see their loved ones taken away.
He texted me and said that immigration was here and they surrounded everything. And then I texted him back and I didn't believe him, and he said they did.
You're all fucking illegal. You're all illegal. You're all illegal. We didn't invite none of you here. We're the only Native Americans here. That's right. We're the only Native Americans here. You're all illegal. We didn't invite none of you. We didn't invite none of you. Exactly. Get on with your bogus arguments. Get on with your bogus arguments. We're the only legal ones here.
We have Native Americans here.
Yeah. We should have put that sign up when you son of a bitches came.
Connected to this movement, there have always been issues of reception, right? How are immigrants received and welcomed in the United States? And there it's kind of paradoxical. I think the US, the best way to describe the United States is being kind of sitting in a paradox of, on one hand, being aware that we need immigrants, that immigrants are a life source of labor, culture, of all kinds of energies, political, economic, cultural, political, you name it. I think that we could do a survey of American culture and you could see it all connected to immigrant communities in very significant ways. But connected to all that we gain with immigration and immigrants, there are also all of these anxieties about immigrants, right? These anxieties that are rooted on this notion that, you know, will they assimilate? Will they become like us? Will they fold into American society and become like us?
I came here in July of 2000, and we acquired undocumented status after overstaying on our visas. So we had tourist visas and we overstayed. We never went back. So because of that, I gained undocumented status, and eventually, you know, I mean, that never really bothered me when I was a kid. It never really posed any problems for me. You know, I just went to school the same as everybody else. Nothing about me was really different. I did feel a really big urge to assimilate, so I assimilated as much as I could, tried to be like everybody else. And it wasn't really until I graduated high school, as it happens with most undocumented people, that your status really starts to define your life in very severe ways. So I was applying for college, and I got accepted into all the universities that I applied to, and I got scholarships in almost all of them, but I still couldn't afford to pay for them. And because I didn't qualify for FAFSA or for any sort of government aid, I was unable to attend. So I went to community college, and that's where I was finally, I met my husband, and through that I was able to finally see kind of a light at the end of the tunnel, that there may be an opportunity for me to adjust my status. But you know, my family is still, still on the same boat, still undocumented, still unable to thrive as they should be because of this status. We were getting these really scary phone calls, like in the middle of the night, because people were disappearing. So people, just mothers and fathers and brothers and sisters were going to work and then just not coming back and not surfacing for days, weeks at a time. And that's what really kind of raised our flags.
On the day, we were driving to get some groceries to a gas station, and at the stop sign, getting to the main road, our car was surrounded by 4 government cars. They didn't have any plates or anything, and they asked my dad to get off the car because they were gonna ask him some questions. And in less than 15 seconds, 30 seconds, my dad was arrested and taken in another car, and my brothers and I were just going crazy because my dad was being taken away, and we didn't know why.
He was on his way to work. It was about 5 o'clock in the morning. He was pulled over for a traffic violation. They said that he had not stopped properly at a stop sign. Because he didn't have identification, they took him into McLean County Jail, and they held him, and he wasn't able to contact anybody, so I didn't even know at that time. And so apparently he was given a time where he could go to court that day. So I went to the courthouse. He never showed up. Well, he was given an opportunity to pay bail, and he paid the bail, but he was not released because then they held him for ICE. So they put an immigration hold on him. And the sheriff here in town automatically does that. for anybody that comes in without identification, Latinos. He was released into ICE custody the morning he was supposed to be released because they could only hold him for 48 hours before they have to release him if ICE doesn't pick them up. They picked him up the morning they were supposed to release him. It was in the middle of the night, actually, when they picked him up. And they shackled them. And he's never had anything on his record except for a traffic violation. They shackle them on the ankles. They shackle them around the waist with their hands their arms and hands shackled. And they make them walk like that, with the little sandals and socks and, everything like that. And then they put them on a bus and they just ship them. He went to, I think, 3 other different stops before they even get to Chicago. They held him there, and then they called me. They said, we're going to release him, but you have to pick him up immediately because if you don't and he's standing outside, we can pick him back up for solicitation, I believe it was, or something like that, and then he would be held. They were going to release him, and then they threatened to turn around and, pick him back up again. And they released him, and then we ended up having to drive back and forth to Chicago, every couple of months just to check in. So we would take the trip, 2-hour trip over there, 2-hour trip back to check it, do a 5-minute check-in. We would check in, okay, yeah, we live in the same place, he lives in the same place, he has the same phone number, okay, bye. And that's it. So we'd both of us missed a day of work, all the gas, everything. So financially it became, it's come quite a bit of a toll on us. Now we've had to hire an attorney for immigration. And that's running us close to $10,000 for an immigration attorney, and that's not even a guarantee that he'll be able to stay. It's a catch-22. It's like throwing a coin up in the air and hoping for the best. I call heads, and I hope I get the heads. You just don't know what is going to happen. We could pay all $10,000, and they say, well, sorry, we can't do anything for you. He has to go back. So.
It's a broken system, and basically, people are making money off it. Because every day that there's an immigrant in one of the detention centers is another day that corporations like the GEO Group and CCA, which are private prisons, are getting our tax dollars for housing these immigrants in there. And they have a contract with the federal government, with the Department of Homeland Security, to house these inmates. And there's a quota that Congress has passed of 400,000 people a year. So they need to fill them beds. And even though through their own policy states that they only want criminals, the drug dealers, the rapists, the murderers, the truth of the matter is that people like Francisco are being caught up in the system and being picked up and sent to these detention centers for profit. They're making money off of locking up immigrants, and it's immoral, and not enough people are talking about it, but it's something that we talk about, and it's something that we're trying to get out there a little bit more, and hopefully people can start connecting the dots of how what this country is turning into. It's a country of, how can I make more money off of the suffering of immigrants, off the suffering of poor people, off the suffering of broken up unions, whatever. Just they're figuring out more and more ways to increase their bottom line.
Illinois People's Action and Latinos United for Change spoke before the McLean County Justice Committee, asking them to sign a complaint against the McLean County Sheriff's Department. McLean County's been honoring ICE requests, which detain immigrants up to 48 hours after being stopped without a valid state ID. Latinos United for Change say other sheriff's departments, like Champaign's, no longer honor ICE requests. Sheriff Mike Emery says he's just following the federal law, while organizer Jen Carrillo says it's unconstitutional for federal law to force local police to follow ICE progress.
Meanwhile, Wall Street and big banks are looking at the situation and asking, where can we profit? Rest assured, folks, they found an answer. Private interests seeking to make a buck wherever possible at whatever cost to our society are constructing private prisons that profit off of filling their cells. What this country needs is unconditional amnesty for all immigrants now. With the way things are now, violations of basic human rights are rampant and must stop if we are to call ourselves a civilized society. NPA and the National Domestic Workers Alliance urge Wells Fargo to immediately divest from these immoral, unjust private prisons. And we will be back to make sure that it happens.
Divest now! 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 Divest now!
Corrections Corporation of America, which is one of the biggest private prison industries. And so you have these legislators who are writing anti-immigrant laws because these private detention centers profit with every person that goes in there. So it's in their best interest that more people are being incarcerated because they make more money.
Kind of what's driving us to do this, to crash our open houses. You know, we met with Republican congressman from Central Illinois. She's a Democrat. I mean, I don't understand why she's finding it so hard to meet with us. You know, we'll be able to get this meeting scheduled because I don't know if her schedule is even telling her that they were requesting this or what's going on. So, I mean, we may get up there and she might be like, you know, I had no idea. And, you know, then she'll look at Melissa and be like, you know, get them on the schedule for next week. So that's best case scenario. But we'll see how it goes.
What's worst case scenario?
No, it's not really a worst case scenario because the next step would be, you know, turning up the heat and bringing 100 people next time. But that's always fun, so that's not worse. Yeah. In my mind, that's kind of what we want to do. It's kind of like letting the air out of the balloon. If you get everything you want with that first ask, you don't get to do none of the fun stuff.
Okay.
Well, 21 years has not been enough to figure me out. I'm so tired of thinking about the future. Won't you just leave me be?
Just, you know, same thing, you know, talk to her again, give her the script, you know, tell her you want to talk about immigration reform, tell her where you're from, who you're representing, and, you know, it's really important that we get a meeting in the next couple of weeks, early March, before anything is moved. We want to give her our input and let her know the strategy that we have in regard to the whole problem.
And his smile's full of yellow teeth, and he only smiles when I'm sad, when I am sad. Numbers game, numbers game, numbers game, numbers game, all right.
And Governor Pat Quinn says he will support a bill that would allow undocumented workers to get an Illinois driver's license. News 25's Denise Jackson has more.
The Illinois Senate has given the green light on a bill that would allow illegal immigrants to obtain an Illinois driver's license. A temporary visitor driver's license would be similar to this, making it possible for illegal immigrants to buy insurance. Members of the Illinois People's Action lobbied in Springfield last week in support of the bill.
A lot of these people don't venture out as much as they used to, but they still drive because sometimes it's a necessity, especially with the Illinois winters coming up. They're going to get in their car.
I said you'll find me and drag me up by the scruff of my coat.
Because of the inability of the United States Congress to take action in certain areas, states are being left to on their own, so to speak, to try and start dealing with some of the issues that immigration poses. And one of those such issues is what was referred to as the immigration driver's license, temporary driver's license is the correct terminology. And that's something that the state's been trying to deal with for the last several years. That proposal's been there and has recently passed the legislature and signed into law by the governor.
We shifted gears and started going after driver's license, which will make a tremendous improvement to the situation. But I mean, still, even with driver's licenses, the problems of at the workplace are still happening. Even with driver's licenses, there's still employers who are not, that are engaging in wage theft and that are exploiting people, that are sexually harassing women, and these women can't say anything because they're afraid that, that immigration is going to be called on them if they report any misbehavior. So it's something that's very real, and that I think that if you just take the time to just talk to the Latino community here in Bloomington, that these stories are real. So.
I am Joaquin. I must fight and win this struggle for my sons, and they must know me, who I am. Part of the blood that runs in me could not be vanquished by the Moors. I defeated them after 500 years, and I have endured. Part of the blood in me has labored endlessly for hundreds of years under the heel of lustful Europeans. I am still here. I have endured the rugged mountains of our country. I have survived the toils of slavery in the fields. I have existed in the barrios of the cities, in the suburbs of bigotry, in the mines of social snobbery, in the prisons of dejection, in the muck of exploitation, and in the fierce heat of racial hatred. And now the trumpet sounds. The music of the people stirs the revolution. Like the sleeping giant, it slowly rears its head. To the sounds of trampling feet, clamoring voices, mariachi strains, fiery tequila explosions, the smell of chile verde, and soft brown eyes as expectation for a better life. In all the fertile farmlands and the barren plains, the mountain villages, the smoke-smeared cities, we start to move. La raza, Mexicano, Español, Latino, Chicano, or whatever I call myself. I look the same, I feel the same, I cry the same, and I sing the same. I am the masses of my people. I refuse to be absorbed. I am Joaquin. The odds are great, but my spirit is strong, my faith unbreakable. My blood is pure. I am Aztec Prince. I am Christian Christ. I shall endure.
They profit off animal cruelty, actively hiding practices. They refuse negotiations for better working conditions, while the leaders of tomorrow are held hostage by their loans. All the debt students get, they all own. They outsource labor as leverage, cut worker health care and pay, trick courts to treating people and corporations the same way, while their legal teams are paid millions of dollars to help roast health insurance for the workers who need it most. They have sold out privacy as a commodity to those who oppress. They use the military and police force to print freedom of the press. Despite the catastrophic failures that their policies produce, they continue to tighten the news. The future of the human race requires all our hands. We occupy this public place to scream out our demands. Assert your power, join the movement. They've declined recalling faulty products endangering our lives. They block alternate forms of energy to keep oil prices high, while generic forms of medicine continue to be blocked, killing those who can't afford Wall Street stock. especially to cover up oil spills and other heinous crimes. They keep people dumb and fearful through the media and their lies. They kill prisoners even when presented with doubts about their guilt. What the fuck kind of system have we built? They perpetuate colonialism, any country that they please. They have tortured and murdered innocent